Welcome to Disassembled, the official podcast for the Big Glasgow comic page, where we talk about news, reviews, and interviews in the world of comic books. As always, I'm your host, Ian Lynn, and I am joined this week by my friend Massimo.
Hello, everyone.
And we have a new voice on the podcast this week. We have another writer for the site making her first appearance. Please give a warm, non-auditory, because you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Welcome to Bethany.
Hello.
So it's always good to get new blood in the podcast. I know everyone's probably tired of just hearing me and Alan fight about whether or not Zack Snyder movies are good or not. As entertaining as that is, so we thought it would be good to get a new voice in here, just to give the viewers kind of or listeners, as the case may be, kind of a little overview. Bethany, what's your kind of history with comic books? What are your favorite kinds of comic books? Kind of a little bit about you.
I'm a bit stereotypical. I'm very much so driven to Marvel comics. Got into comics mostly from the MCU and stuff, just because they hit right around like mid-high school. No comic. I should have read this better beforehand. You're welcome to whoever's editing this.
Gonna leave this all in.
I appreciate that. No, I mean, obviously I study English at uni, so comics are sort of a different thing to read compared to like the novels that we're forced to read for class. Prettier, easier to digest.
That's definitely true. I always had I like reading, but in high school and college, anytime there was like an assigned book to read for some reason, I was always very anti-authority. Like, I don't want to read this because you're telling me to, and I don't like being told what to do, which seems kind of counterproductive in hindsight.
I think everyone's like that though, and then it like completely ruins the idea of reading for you.
Yeah, like, I'm not doing this for enjoyment. I'm doing it so I can write a paper and get a grade on it. It's fantastic. I mean, that's fine sticking to things like Marvel and stuff. I'm kind of the same. I don't really delve that much into indie comics. I'm a lot more of a DC guy. So, I mean, comics are comics. If you like comic books, it doesn't really matter if you're into indie comics or if you're into Marvel or DC. I mean, I don't understand why people get like weirdly gatekeepery about it. It seems kind of unnecessary.
There is all this like weird thing that exists between Marvel and DC fans. It's like almost mutual hatred, and then there's people who just like indie comics, just hanging out in the corner.
Yeah, I don't get that either. Like, I want to read a good Spider-Man comic. I also want to read a good Batman comic. I want to read a good Just give me good stories. I don't really give a shit who's publishing them. That tribalism thing drives me up a wall.
It's terrible. It's part of society's broader issues. Anyway, without that political talk that we can talk about,
right,
deeper issues in society.
I'm sure you guys could wax poetic about that up there in Scotland for at least 15 minutes.
Yes,
speaking of reading comics, though, let's talk about comics we've been reading, which is something we haven't done in a couple of weeks. I guess I will kick it off just since I'm kind of steering this ship. I haven't read a lot in the past week. The main things I read were the second issue of Crime Syndicate and the second issue of Suicide Squad. Speaking of DC, I don't have like a lot.
You had like really good things to say about the first few issues of those books.
I really liked the first issue of Crime Syndicate because it seemed, I kind of liked that they were setting up a different Earth 3 than we've seen in the past. A little bit more like a normal Earth Prime, where then stuff kind of went sideways as the heroes were developing instead of just a everyone's evil for evil's sake kind of situation. Also Starro, they're immediately jumping into Starro, so you can tell they're doing kind of a pastiche of like the first Justice League story ever. And this is kind of like how the Crime Syndicate came together. The second issue, not as in love with it. Most of the issue is devoted to Ultraman and Superwoman fighting because Ultraman got a Starro on his chest. And the art is still really good. Kieran, what's their name? I just looked at it. Kieran Kwong, I think. Let me see here. I just open it up and take a look. Kieran McCowan. their art is still fantastic. It's really good. You've still got a backup story that's a kind of the background of Owlman. That's the art is done by Brian Hitch, who you might know from things like The Ultimates. Again, the art's really good. The writing is kind of where I felt like it was a little too corny for my taste. A little
Like
too
too
wordy.
supervillainy?
Kind of. It felt a little. I don't want to say amateurish because like who am I to talk? But it just felt a little blunt, a little on the nose. And then in the Owlman backup story, you basically get that you've got Thomas Wayne Jr. as Owlman. Bruce Wayne and Thomas and Martha Wayne were murdered, in the alleyway. Thomas Wayne Jr. survives, becomes Owlman. And in this version of Earth 3, it seems like his upbringing was pretty similar to Batman's. He went around, he trained, and he had a no-kill rule. Like, he did just do straight crime fighting. And then in the backup story that we get, he has cornered the Earth 3 version of Harvey Bullock, who, of course, is evil and working for crime boss Jim Gordon. And Harvey Bullock reveals that Thomas and Martha Wayne had Jim Gordon Jr. killed, and so in retribution, Jim Gordon had Thomas and Martha Wayne and, of course, Bruce killed. And for some reason, this causes some sort of psychological break in Thomas Wayne Jr. He abandons his no-kill rule, turns Harvey Bullock into street pizza, and then becomes evil, murderous Owlman. That just kind of felt like, okay, there's no real build-up there. I feel like that's a bit of a small thing to turn someone into a complete nihilist, but sure. Which is what he seems to be. I mean, you get a little bit of Owlman and his Alfred in this issue, and they kind of hint towards Owlman having kind of a, nihilism, like he's looking for death kind of thing. It's almost a little reminiscent of The Dark Knight Returns when Bruce Wayne is like, I'm looking for a good death, a worthy death. Like, it seems like Owlman's doing kind of a similar thing. I don't know. It was okay. If you read the first issue, go ahead and read this one. See if you like it. If you don't like it, I can't blame you for putting it down. I don't know if I'm going to read issue 3. I think I'll maybe give it one more shot with issue 3 to see if it can pick me back up again. Suicide Squad was also okay. It's still basically
reviews,
yeah, I mean, Suicide Squad basically right now, I think both of these, well, Crime Syndicate 2 was definitely reviewed on the site by one of our newer writers. I don't know if he did Suicide Squad. I think he might have. I'm not 100% sure. Suicide Squad right now, what they're doing is they're having the current Suicide Squad extract Talon of the Court of Owls from Arkham Asylum. And it's kind of interesting because they're tying it in with the Joker gas attack on Arkham that you saw in Infinite Frontier number 0.
Frontier, yeah.
So they're tying it, they're having that happen at the same time, which is kind of interesting. I like that they're doing that. They're really heavily focusing on Peacemaker, which I'm sure that is no coincidence, given the movie coming out where he's a central character.
And a TV show as well, right?
Yes, they're also going to have an HBO Max show, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Which I'm all right with. John Cena, I think, surprisingly good comedic timing. So I'm fine with that. And they've also got Connor Kent in there as their Superman, which is, again, kind of tying into some of the Future State stuff. Suicide Squad and Future State did have Connor Kent as their Superman, granted in a different costume. So I think they're steering towards the storyline. They hinted at in there. It's fine. It's not amazing. It's not bad either. If you like Suicide Squad, pick it up. If you're interested in the movie, if you're interested in the Peacemaker character, give it a read. Otherwise, none of it's mind-blowing, is kind of what I'll say. And that's pretty much all I have to say about things I've read. So let's go ahead and, I guess on my screen, let's go from what would be left to right. So next, Massimo, what have you got for me?
So this week I have been kind of reading and also going to be reviewing the piece I read, or the issues I've read, sorry, for the site, which is GIGA, or GIGA, or GIGA, depending on how you pronounce it, which is by one of our podcast interview guests, Alex Paknadel, who we had on last week on the podcast.
Yes.
And it is basically a story about after a massive war between cities, like city-sized skyscraper mechs, what happens to humanity, and how like it's basically set like I'd say like decades, maybe hundreds of years after. They don't give a specific time frame, but it's been a while because like the mechs basically just went dormant after like a big final battle, and then humanity has basically reclaimed these mechs and uses them as part of cities and as part of buildings. And like basically repairs them and keeps them up to date. And I think there's a very good analogy they use, which is the idea like humanity are like microbacteria, in the same way that they would be in the human body, where like they repair and keep things like in tip-top shape and stuff. But honestly, it's another phenomenal book by Alex Paknadel, who's done like stuff like Turncoat, and he's got a Mortal Hulk book coming out, a one-shot, out later this year. And again, like it's phenomenal. It's really, really good. It's done by Vault, and it's in partnership with Alex Paknadel and his kind of like writers kind of core kind of group, which is White Noise. And I believe the artist's name is John Lee as well. And I'll be honest, from the outset, phenomenal, because it's only got 3 issues out so far. I think it's like 3 or 5, and I think the idea is we talked about it in the podcast where they give him like 5 issues, and depending on how well the book does, they'll give him more.
Okay. So it's as good a time as ever to jump into it if you haven't read it yet.
Yes, yeah, because the first kind of 3 issues, so kind of the main meatiness of the kind of first arc are out, and it's great. It's like a murder mystery with a giant robot. It's phenomenal, because the kind of the whole plot turn point is that one of these kind of dormant robots is basically found kind of murdered, which shouldn't be able to be happening because they're giant robots that have been laid dormant, but like they basically all of the inhabitants inside have basically been brutally killed, as well as like the robot itself, the core has been torn out of it, which this all happens within maybe the first 5 pages.
Fantastic.
So
I love a good early issue murder.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, just a fucking massive robot with a hole in its chest. But yeah, no, it's really, really good. It's got like it's like dystopian future vibes, but at the same time, like kind of very modern in its tones of like race issues and class issues, and talks a lot about kind of how religion works in a world where there's no traditional gods, but human beings decide to take these giant robots on as gods instead. And yeah, it's phenomenal. It's really good. I'd suggest it's worth a read. The review should be up on the site by the time this podcast comes out. And I believe the third issue, as I said, was only released I think last week. So as you said, it's as good a time as any to jump on. The art is also stunning as well.
I was going to say, from what I've seen of you reading it, the art does look really good. Yeah,
it's really, really expressive and detailed and stuff like that. And also, it's giant robots.
I'm always into giant robots, as we kind of talked about in our Robot Wars interview. That definitely sounds like something I'm interested in reading. It sounds a little. I haven't read a lot of Alex's work, but something that I find interesting between that and his another book he put out, Arcadia, which I read about, I'd say, a third to 45% of the way into. What you're describing there reminds me of Arcadia, just in the sense of the kind of dystopian sort of post-apocalypse vibe. But what I find interesting is these are, Arcadia is kind of it's almost like a Ready Player One thing where, there was a pandemic and people's minds are transported into this virtual world when they're going to die from this disease and blah, 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 blah. Both that and the idea of, giant robots and et cetera. These are ideas that are like kind of basic concepts that could easily be just kind of stereotypical, cheesy, and corny. And it seems like Alex finds a really good ways to approach those concepts and kind of come at them from a perspective that you wouldn't expect. Like, what happens after the giant robots fight each other?
Oh, totally, man. Like, one of his other books, one of the earlier works is called Turncoat as well, which talks about another kind of aftermath thing of when aliens come and what happens when aliens leave the planet. And it's like, he takes these really kind of basic kind of sci-fi concepts, but then kind of brings them up a level by talking about the societal repercussions.
Yeah, he seems to be interested in exploring the after effects, not the event itself, but like, where does this leave humanity? Seems to be kind of the angle he goes with a lot of stuff from, which you don't I feel like you don't see that explored a lot in most mediums because people want to see the action. They want to see, show me the pandemic. Well, no one wants to see a pandemic now, but, show me the horrible things happening. Show me the death and the murder and the explosions. And no one wants to see, like, okay, how do we rebuild after all of that? It's kind of similar, in a way, it's kind of similar to the latter arcs of, like, what The Walking Dead did, except a bit less grim. Because, boy, that book got dark. I mean, that book was always dark, but it got really dark.
See, and I was never really that into it. Like, actually, speaking of Robert Kirkman, the thing that I'm kind of more into recently is Invincible. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we've been watching.
Yes, and I've not read the comic, so I was just thrown into this TV show with no idea what to expect. Which is really great when it started to get really violent.
Yeah. Yes, I hadn't read the comic. I had seen kind of a summary of the first trade paperback. So I had an idea of what the story was, but watching that first episode, I was like, okay, this is more or less following what Oh my god! That was the most violent animated shit I've ever seen in my life. It's like, wow, holy crap. So you're going through and reading the first omnibus?
Yeah, I've got it over there. I've got it on my desk over there, and it's I've had it since I maybe 13, so I read this back when I was probably way too young to be reading this comic.
Mm-hmm.
As with a lot of things in my life, I was probably too young to be reading them or watching them. But yeah, I read through the first thing, so it covers the first 13 issues, and there's not that much of a deviation so far from the TV show, which is kind of good. I like that because it's obviously going to stay true to adaptation. But yeah, no, the brutality and the violence, I didn't think they were going to do it.
Which is why you didn't warn me.
Yeah, which is why I didn't warn you, because I thought, oh no, they're going to do a thing where they cut away or whatever.
Right. They'll, when he's brutally murdering the entire fake Justice League, there'll be like shadows against the wall of people's heads. Yeah. No, that's their actual whole ass head exploding right there.
And then the latest episode as well, which we might talk about at the end if we've got time.
We were mid-dinner, man, when that happened.
Oh, I hope you weren't eating like spaghetti or something.
I think it was sauce. It was like tomato sauce, like pasta.
Yeah, it was pasta.
Yeah.
Wasn't our best move.
No, it wasn't. It was not ideal.
I like that I guessed perfectly exactly what that was. Definitely, I am definitely not stereotyping the fact that Massimo is Italian. I'm super not. Not at all.
How dare you?
I'm going to get canceled by Twitter.
I mean, you chose one meal for next week and it was spaghetti bolognese. Like, he's fitting the stereotype well.
This is my life now.
I know everything I need to. No, dude, I love Italian food, so I will never judge you. Lasagna is literally my favorite food on the planet. I could be dog sick, and I will not turn down a chunk of lasagna. I won't. I will eat it and then throw it up, and I will be glad I did. I'm probably gonna edit that out because that's gross.
I was gonna say this is staying in the YouTube version though, because Dan doesn't edit that much of the video.
Oh, you're right. So. He doesn't cut much out. It's a lot harder to cut with video and stuff. I can kind of snip around the conversations with the different audio tracks, but the video you can't really do that as much.
Anyway, back to Invincible though.
Yes, I also started to read the first omnibus a little bit, and I did. There are definitely some departures in the show. Mm-hmm. There's definitely some reordering of the plot, like the kind of the order of the alien invasion and when Omni-Man actually kills the whatever they call their
the Seven or whatever
they call it, Super Seven or whatever.
Guardians of the Globe, I think it is. Yeah.
They definitely reorganize parts of the plot, but I think it works for an episodic TV structure better. I actually like most of the changes they've made for the plot in the TV show. I think it flows better than the comic does. The comic is a much faster pace, at least in the first few issues. I feel like the TV show has...
The comic moves faster than the TV show is? I felt like the TV show was moving fast.
No, the first 4 issues you have marked in a lot more stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right into him getting his powers immediately, and they definitely give, at least that first episode, they definitely give him more room to breathe.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like both of them. I'm gonna keep reading the comic. I'm gonna keep watching the show. I'm way into both of them.
That's great.
I'm kind of sitting here being like, how did I not know about this years ago?
I only knew about it because my gran bought me the book.
How old?
Like 13, maybe.
Oh, grandma.
Yeah.
If it was any younger, I'd be concerned, but I feel like 13's okay.
Well, the thing was as well, it might be younger than that. To be fair, I don't really know. It was more to do with the fact that it would just look like a cool superhero when she grabbed it, like from Forbidden Planet, which is one of the UK stores here. And
Please tell me you
heard of
never
them.
told her what it was about.
Oh, definitely not. No.
Grandma, look at this!
Just
Look at all this brutal murder! You bought this
Which we
for
can-
me.
I see someone's head getting caved in. We can talk about that later for another thing that happened this week that involved.
Oh, yep. I'm looking forward to talking about that. We'll get to that. We're going to talk about Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier. We're going to talk about the Sam and Bucky Power Hour, episode 4, at the end of the episode here.
Yep.
The real name of that show is too damn long. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea. They should have called it, like, The New Captain America.
I
Or-
suggested Super Soldiers was my idea. 'cause it
Super
makes more
Soldiers would be a
sense.
good one. 2.5 caps. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Used to be 4 possible captains. Now it's 3 possible cap. We'll get into it. I saw here you also read Superman Red and Blue.
I did. That's another review that is supposed to be coming up. It's like big, like another one. I seem to pick these anthology kind of things, where it's like 8 short stories that exist within one book. So it's taken me a wee while to start doing that review. Because I got that review when the book first came out, and I've kind of been sitting on it, kind of reflecting over it a little bit, and life gets in the way. But yeah, no, it's a really, really great book and shows Superman in so many different ways that it just it gives you a better perspective of what it means to be the Man of Steel.
I've been meaning to read it. I saw people gave it really good reactions on ye old internet. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So it's one of those books where like there's multiple authors, multiple artists.
Yeah, it's like obviously with the one main thing of being the colours red and blue in every
Right.
single story. But
Right.
the art is really good. I remember you liked some of the art. I think you like some of the...
I like comics that are like very like I like a nice bright comic because pretty, but when it's like just a couple of colors and it's really simple like that, it can like really draw the eye in and stuff. So it's just like the red, white, and blue and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's very like eye catching because of how simple it is.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to give it a look because I saw that it came out and I was like, it seems interesting, and I will read it at some point in the future. So I mean, if I'm getting a thumbs up recommendation from you, then I'll definitely give that a little peek, a little look see at some point. Now, not to move things along too quick, but we don't want to leave Bethany out of the discussion of what we've been reading. So what have you been reading?
So this week I've read Of the Same Coin, which is I believe a Glasgow-based Kickstarter. Kickstarter was announced, it's launched on the 1st of March, and it was fully funded by the 2nd of March.
Dang.
One day. So obviously by the end of the month they had I think they hit 2,000 or something, which was way above what they were originally going for. It was only 800 they were going for or something like that. But it's, as far as comics goes up, the storyline is really good. It's based around a detective and the assassin, so it's sort of written from the 2 points of view, sort of like how the Superman Red, White, and Blue one is.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those stories.
So
Oh,
you're
hence of the
following-
same coin, like 2 sides.
yeah, I never put that together, so
You're
that's
English,
not.
Jim.
I didn't say I was a good English student.
I also studied English in college, so it's okay. You don't have to feel bad.
But yeah, so the storyline's really good because it's not something we see a lot in UK-based comics. The sort of detective thriller, I feel like you see that a lot more in US comics.
Right, like noir
So-
kind of fiction.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of crime TV shows, so anything like that is translated into a comic is gonna get me excited pretty quickly anyway. I did find the art slightly too gritty for my taste. I I prefer something that's like a little bit more polished, but it's a thriller crime story. It's gonna be a little bit gritty.
I believe at one point you used the words disturbing.
I did call it disturbing because all the characters look really dead behind the eyes. My review will be out by the time this podcast comes up, so you can enjoy those descriptions. You know, they look really dead, and I find it quite unsettling.
Right.
But the storyline's great. And they do use the different colors, so it's a lot more monochrome for when you're following the detective story, and when you're following the group of assassins sort of story, it's a lot, I wouldn't say colorful, but there's more color.
So you can kind of there's definitely like a different tone between between the two sides. I'm looking at some images online right now of a couple of pages, and I see what you mean. There's something off about the way the people are drawn.
It's Uncanny Valley, right?
Like, the front cover I think looks nice and smooth and really polished, and then as soon as you get into the actual comic, there's just nothing behind the eyes.
I'm looking at a page right now, and one of these characters looks like Harrison Ford if someone rearranged his face in like a horrible way.
Well, on the first page, someone looks like Jason
Ackles.
Yeah. Like a spitting image. There's no way that isn't supposed to be him.
Well, we'll come back to Jensen Ackles.
So ominous.
It's a good time.
It's very threatening.
We'll come back to Jensen Ackles. No, well, we have some things about him to discuss this week. I'm real into kind of noir-y stuff. So that
it's very good, especially on the morality front, because the bad guys per se don't really view themselves as bad guys because they're assassins with a very strict moral code. Just a classic comic book storyline for you there.
Right.
So like, because of that, you don't really view them that much as bad guys.
Which is always more interesting. I mean, sometimes I like my villains who are just like evil for evil's sake. Like, this guy is just a dick because he's a dick. But I do like more nuanced villains. I'll put air quotes around it, because, you know, whether or not you think... Sometimes with characters like that, whether or not you think they're villains, your mileage may vary. But that definitely sounds like something I would certainly be interested in reading, and I will have to pick up when it comes out properly. Or, I mean, I can probably also pick up a review copy. Obviously, we write for the same place.
Glad you put that together. I didn't want to point it out.
You know, sometimes it takes me a second, and again, that's why I edit these after the fact, because my brain train sometimes takes a minute to get to the station. So that's what we've all been reading this week and watching in the case of Invincible, which I guess we've now discussed Invincible to a certain extent, not to a deep degree of the most recent episode, but I think that was something we wanted to cover in the review roundup, and somehow we managed to like work in both the show and the comic, which is good.
I mean, I think we'll probably have a special at some point when the show ends.
I'd like to think so.
It's
like
inevitable.
we can at some point do like a whole season
recap kind of thing.
Yeah, a whole season recap. But I mean, you mentioned that one of the characters in Of the Same Coin looks like Jensen Ackles. Speaking of Jensen Ackles, let's move into news here. That's my best segue because Massimo's way better at the segues than I am. I don't know how he does it. It's a gift that I cannot emulate. Anyways, a bunch of trailers for stuff came out this week, and since I'm going with the Jensen Ackles angle, the first one I'd like to mention is the first trailer for the animated rendition of Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1. They're doing it like The Dark Knight Returns, where they're going to split it into two parts, which I think is great. It's a bit of a meaty book, The Long Halloween. It's long. It's in the name. So I'm glad they're doing it two parts. I'm going to assume you guys got to see that trailer?
Yep.
Yes.
Bethany you don't actually know anything about...
I know nothing. I'm not the biggest fan of animated TV shows. They don't hit right in my brain.
kind of movies and stuff like that, yeah. Animated movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, animated movies are fine, but this TV shows, they don't hit my brain right. They don't go in.
It's an interesting way of putting
but
it.
it looks nice. Well, not nice because it's, looked quite creepy, but it looks nice.
Yeah, I mean they're adopting the same art style that we got in Superman Man of Tomorrow and the World War II Justice Society of America movie that's coming out. So I think we can officially assume that this is part of a kind of united, rebooted DC animated universe after the Flash went back and undid Flashpoint again in Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, whatever it was called.
Is that what they did with that? Because
at the end of the movie, Constantine is like, everything's messed up. Barry, you know what you got to do. And Barry's like, and he runs faster than he's ever ran before, and then credits. But the implication is he goes back and undoes like everything.
Because I was gonna say, I remember like the last thing I probably watched was either the Flashpoint or the Suicide Squad film. Because I remember briefly Zoom shows up in that film with a bullet hole in his head.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, I like those films, but at the same time, making them a unified universe is cool. But I think people were really up in arms, especially about Long Halloween specifically, because of how that art style is so important to that story.
Yeah. At the same time, though, Tim Sale's art is so unique. I don't know that it would look good translated to an animated format necessarily. His art is, I would almost go as far as to say his art's kind of avant-garde. Like, he doesn't necessarily do accurate anatomy or, I mean, the characters are real weird looking in a good way. But I don't know that they would look good fluidly moving as animated characters. Of course, we got Jensen Ackles voicing Batman.
I was wondering where the link came in.
Yes,
I know I
Jensen
watched
Ackles
trailer,
is
but I just
voicing
not made that
Batman.
connection.
Which he sounds real good. We've got Troy Baker from Arkham Origins back as the Joker, which as good a handoff from Mark Hamill as you could get. He sounds great. We've got who is it? The poor girl from Glee that unfortunately passed away, whose name I don't remember.
I should know her name, but I only know her Glee name.
Naya
That's slightly
Rivera.
embarrassing.
This is her final role posthumously. They finished all the voice work before she unfortunately passed away. So,
who's she voicing? She Catwoman.
She's Catwoman, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of cool that she has one more role to give out to
I
people.
recognize that voice.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it. I really like The Long Halloween, and especially if you've never read The Long Halloween before, I think this will be a fun watch. It's a seminal Batman story. There's a lot of stuff that's based on it.
I got that from the local library. That's when I read that story. I read Long Halloween when I was really, really young. But yeah, I got that from the local libraries when I read that. And yeah, it's a phenomenal.
I've sort of accepted I'm going to end up watching a lot of shows I wouldn't have watched otherwise.
Yeah.
Now that you're just here.
Yep.
That'll happen. Go watch The Dark Knight, and you've pretty much got like 2/3 of The Long Halloween. It's kind of what honestly, they base a lot of that movie on The Long Halloween, with some tweaks here and there, but obviously not the same like base storyline. But they crib a lot of the mob stuff, some of the scenes, the origin of Two-Face, kind of like it's a similar feel, I would say. We also got the first trailer for Jupiter's Legacy from Mark Miller on Netflix. Maybe I'm in the minority here. I feel a little worn out on what if superheroes, but like they're real with real problems. I'm kind of over it. I feel like maybe I'm filling the Alan spot a little bit here, but
yeah, just the hatred he burns within you.
Yes, I just need to.
I feel like it's not a show I would watch for it being a superhero show. It's a show you'd watch for it being a random drama show.
Yeah, that's a fair way to look at it. I mean, that's kind of Mark Miller's bag. I mean, we talked about this off the mic the other day, talking about the Ultimates and things. Like, Mark Miller kind of does that superhero deconstruction thing in not quite as mean-spirited a fashion as like a Garth Ennis. but that definitely is like his venue, so to speak. It's just between The Boys and Zack Snyder and even Invincible to a certain extent. I feel like we've just been stuck in this rut of like, let's really dig into these superheroes and see who they are as people. And I would kind of like a superhero show where they're just superheroes, and maybe it's not so dark. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm asking for too much.
You just want to feel good. They save people.
Yes, just once.
Stargirl was like that. I mean, that was.
I
She
didn't like
technically
Supergirl.
had real people issues.
Stargirl was what it was. It was
Stargirl. I haven't watched that.
Yeah.
I didn't like CW. Well, I guess it was CBS's Supergirl at first, but I didn't like that show. But Stargirl, I haven't watched any of.
That's one of the shows. It's got Geoff Johns as like kind of producer and stuff on it, so it kind of sticks quite close to the comic version of
You
character.
know, Justice League also had Geoff Johns as a producer, and we saw how that turned out. So, yeah, I mean, I'll watch it when it comes out. I haven't read the comic it's based off of at all. I know borderline nothing about it, but I feel like the trailer does a good job of giving you an idea of kind of what's going on. Are you guys are probably going to give it a watch? I'm guessing.
It'll be on in the background, I think, for me personally, because I don't have any attachment to that. I mean, the only thing I know about it is Frank Whitley's art, which was...
Ooh, yes,
Yeah.
that is worth mentioning. Actually, that's one good reason to read it. Frank Quitely's art is so good, I will read pretty much anything he draws.
Oh, it's great. I love it so much.
It took me, to be honest, back when I first ran into Frank Quitely's art, it took me a while to warm up to it, because he draws things very wrinkly, if you know what I mean.
Everyone's butch.
Yeah, like everyone's got like real big jaws and like real tiny faces, and like the costumes are kind of wrinkled, and
And it works for some people. It works for some heroes, but other heroes it doesn't work. Like
I really
one of my issues I had was when I was reviewing Earth 2, which is obviously the Grant Morrison and Frank Whitley, Grant Morrison and Frank Whitley joint. The issue I had with that is Batman looked too buff. Like, you need to be a little bit skinnier than Superman. Like, he's still a big guy, but like...
I actually fall on the opposite side of that. I think it makes sense for Batman to be more jacked than Superman. Superman has superpowers. He's strong naturally. Batman has to get jacked. You kind of see the same thing between Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck in Batman v Superman. Superman's just jacked naturally. Like, he's got the power of the sun, whereas Ben Affleck's got to like do CrossFit and stuff to compete. So I think it works. That's just where I fall on that side of things.
No, and I get what you mean. Like, I think it works like in some formats. Like, BTA's done it really well.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
But I feel like for me, for some reason, it was really disconcerting, and specifically up to just Batman. Whatever.
Yeah, and by the same effect, like Owlman was kind of
yeah,
just a little
but,
swole man.
Not to take us on to another news story that's happened, because we don't want to.
Please do. Let's continue to move, because we're pretty rambling today.
We are pretty rambling today. We could talk about obviously Loki, which had its trailer release, which
that show looks fun.
Yes.
Very nice. Yes, this is
the one comment I wrote down was just the word yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that to watching that one. Like that. First of all, I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and I will happily watch hours of him being a snarky jackass to people. You know what it reminds me of, from what we can see of it so far, from the initial reveal trailer and the trailer we got this week? It looks kind of like Marvel's answer to Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
With the like silly time shenanigans and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely could work. I mean, I like the idea of Loki not being like since it's obviously 2012 Loki. Like, it's not post kind of Thor, Dark World, like Ragnarok Loki.
It's pre-character development Loki. We're kind of hitting the reset button on him.
Yeah, I think it can work really well, because you can have this character basically regain his morals, but through a really twisted, awkward way.
Do you what do you think? You think we're gonna get a Hemsworth cameo? Not to get right into the speculation with another Marvel show.
Another one. after
Hemsworth
WandaVision.
seems. I think he said something about at one point, like Hemsworth seems super down to just be Thor in everything he can be Thor in. So I wouldn't be
blame him.
surprised. Yeah, like it's a fun character, especially the direction they've taken him in since Ragnarok. I would not be surprised if we get a Hemsworth cameo. You heard it here first, maybe, or maybe you heard it somewhere else, but now you're hearing it here first, again for the second time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
We're
you
the
the news.
News-breaking podcast.
We bring you the news that hasn't happened yet, that might not happen, that might be fake. Yeah, no, that looks really good.
Speaking of news that might be fake,
see these segues, man. I just
I know I shouldn't laugh at them because they're supposed to be
I
good.
can see
but I
you
just
run
won't
the
laugh
show.
at them.
I mean, to be fair, you've got your hand up my back, kind of pop at me the whole time. So it's really...
Would you just go on? Get on with it.
Speaking of kind of unconfirmed rumours, there was a recent thing that came from The Express, of all places, a British newspaper, that apparently Tobey Maguire has been confirmed to be in the new Spider-Man film through his Spanish voice actor, his Spanish dub actor.
Dub actor's
Allegedly.
always giving everything away.
This is one of those things.
I could believe that.
Yeah.
Yes, Roger Pera.
Yes, I was guessing because like the guy said, like he says that most likely he is going to be working on something in the future, and obviously like once they finish the film, it'll be dubbed over, which they're kind of in the midway production at the moment. Well, I think I wouldn't take it on its face value, for Tobey Maguire to have too big a role in the film, if he has a role at all.
But people have definitely been calling for him to be involved in some way. For nostalgia.
Yeah. I definitely feel like there's been so many, and I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, there's been so many casting rumors, and like Alfred Molina, Jamie Foxx, maybe William Dafoe, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield. I feel like some of these have to just be like blink and you miss it cameos, or maybe they show it for a couple of seconds.
That's the thing. I think Jamie Foxx is the only one that's properly confirmed. Like that's actually like 100% happened, and the rest of them is all just
I
speculation.
think Alfred Molina was confirmed as well, if I'm not
Really?
mistaken.
Okay.
I think. Don't quote me on
Back to
that.
Dr. Octopus.
Heard it here first for the 5th time. Of course, Tom Holland has said with no uncertainty that no, they will not be appearing in this film, but Tom Holland is also infamous for spoiling everything ever, so I think there's a very good chance that someone sat him down and said, if someone asks you about this, you say no! You say no, Tom! No spoilers! That's what they call him, no spoilers, Tom Holland. It's like a vault. Just lock it up. I'm excited for that movie. Whatever cameos show up in it.
Oh, December's gonna be great.
I mean, they kind of opened the door with J.K. Simmons at the end of Far From Home, so... I mean... I'm not saying no to anything. What else we got? What other news?
I mean, it's been a pretty slow news week in terms of content, but I think kind of one of the final kind of ones that we can touch on. There's probably two maybe we could touch on very quickly. In the kind of realm of TV shows, we could talk about kind of how CW has that new Powerpuff Girl show coming out, and how how horrendous the costumes are, and how we go from having fucking Scarlet Witch, WandaVision, having that great interpretation of a costume in one superhero medium of a TV show, and then Powerpuff Girls turns around and says, instead of following in the footsteps of a very popular Marvel show, we're going to decide to go for these.
But it's the CW. They usually pull like a nice modern jazzy costume out the bag, and then we got last minute Halloween costume.
Yeah. Also, though, it's the CW, so like the CW is a very your mileage may vary sort of thing, and I think right now, like they seem to just be throwing all their eggs in the remake basket. Like they've got Powerpuff Girls. They remade Walker Texas Ranger with the other dude from Supernatural that's not Jensen Ackles.
I can't remember his name.
The one with the hair.
The one with the hair. They're
Riverdale?
redoing Kung Fu. I tweeted the other week. I tweeted my pitch to CW is, all right, hear me out. Live action Johnny Bravo, right? And he's in high school, but of course he needs to be played by an actor who's clearly pushing 30 because CW. And Johnny Bravo is just trying to find and navigate love in high school. The twist is in this one, Johnny Bravo is gay. We're checking all the boxes. I think it could work.
Just to cover all of the inclusivity.
And Carl
Those
the
boxes.
nerd, instead of Carl the nerd being someone he bullies, Carl is like the bullied nerd at the high school that he defends and becomes friends with. But a couple of seasons in, they become lovers.
And he's played by Danny DeVito.
Yes! All right, pay us later, CW. You can have that one. I'm not going to say you can have that one for free, but, workshop it a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think my main issue with the Powerpuff Girl thing is, like, in terms of actresses, they got free good actresses to play these roles, and they couldn't get them
put them in shit
costumes that fit them
costumes.
properly. They don't even fit them properly, man.
Like, here, wear these colored towels and some knee-high socks. Okay.
I'm
But
hoping for, like, a costume change within the first episode or two.
but it's Turk from Scrubs as Professor Utonium, and I kind of want to see that. So
I'm still gonna watch it.
I'll probably watch the pilot. I'll watch it begrudgingly. I'll hate every moment of it, but I'll watch it.
I've not managed to watch all of Riverdale to not watch this.
Riverdale.
And I've also
can't-
been forced to watch all of Riverdale. And,
I can't get into Riverdale right now. We're running long as it is.
yeah. Should we continue with the news, or should we hop to
Let's.
the Falcon episode?
We're already. I mean, we're coming up on like dangerously close to an hour here. Let's. One of the news stories we can actually
Segue into Winter Soldier.
Yeah, we can kind of merge it with the Winter Soldier. Obviously, well, it's kind of the Winter Soldier. Last week we went to Madripoor, which is a big location for X-Men. So we're getting a little bit of some X-Men related stuff maybe hinted at. And they put up a website for Madripoor, like a tourist website that had some, at least briefly, had some very specific X-Men references in it. That were then removed because maybe they figured out it was a little too on the nose and we're a ways off from the mutants. But still, we can tell they're starting to think in that direction, I think.
And the fact that we're ways off of the mutants is not going to stop us from thinking about a cast.
Yeah, no, I mean it's Marvel shows, so we're gonna have all sorts of dumb theories that won't pan out, just like WandaVision. Then everyone will be mad about it, and then saner minds will be like, "You weren't promised anything. Why are you mad?"
And we will tell them, no.
Just no, refuse.
No. They'll look up at me and say, "No more rumors," and I'll look down and say, "No." Thanks, Rorschach. So Winter Soldier this week. Falcon and Winter Soldier. The Sam and Bucky Power Hour. Super Soldiers. 2 caps. 2 caps and a douche is what we're going to call it.
I mean, who's the douche? Zemo or
No, Zemo's great, dude. Zemo's my favorite character in this entire show so far. Are you kidding?
I just love the way he keeps just slipping out the door.
Oh, he pulled an El Chapo.
The entire interaction with the children.
I love Zemo in this show. They have made him so much more of a character than he was in Civil War. I have a really hard time rooting against him. First of all, I kind of understand his ideals. Like he comes off as much less of a villain here. Yeah, he's done some villainous stuff, but I get where he's coming from. People having superpowers is dangerous.
He's doing what you promised to do.
Yeah,
he's doing exactly what you promised to do.
His family was killed, and he made them a promise, and he's gonna. He says in last week's episode he's not gonna let his work go unfinished. This week's episode had a lot to unpack, like a lot.
Just big breath.
And I would say this episode was actually less about Sam and Bucky and more about John Walker in a lot of ways.
I think this is the first episode we've had where it focuses overall less on Sam.
Yes.
Because
Sam
he does
was
appear
definitely like in the tiers of characters this episode focused on. Sam is definitely like third down. John Walker's definitely first. You've got Bucky. We get to learn a little bit more about his deprogramming, which, by the way, that opening scene was powerful, man. Like, I felt things about that scene. That was an intense 45 seconds.
Oh man, he's working his ass off to show that he is a good actor.
Yeah,
like,
he pulled that off. That mix of, I mean, tearing up, I feel like, first out of horror at remembering what he had done as the Winter Soldier, and then the transition from that to smiling to relief at realizing that he's free of that. He's no longer like under that programming. Was amazing acting by Sebastian Stan. Like, that set the tone for the entire episode for me.
Yeah. The show definitely started and ended at like some of the strongest points of the show so far.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Because me and Betty have had this conversation, and obviously in the chat, like some of the podcast members were not particularly happy with the first few episodes.
Yeah, Dan felt it was slow.
Yeah, Ian wasn't a big fan either. Scottish Ian, what Big Boss Ian.
See, I feel like
I keep almost breaking my desk over here.
It's fine.
I feel like the pace the show has been moving at in the first few episodes was like appropriate though to establish the storyline.
Yeah. I feel like there was a lot of, and I keep using this term, and I know I overuse it a lot. It was a lot of room to breathe. A lot of getting to know the more personal aspects of Bucky and Sam, reintroducing Zemo. And now I feel like these last 2 episodes are going to be more of a breakneck Marvel pace. Like, we're really...
Oh, man, yeah.
We're definitely kind of like some things happen in this episode, man. I mean, let's get right to it. So... kind of the main crux of this episode was them trying to go after Carly Morgenthau, and her super soldiers with their, the last of the remaining kind of rip-off super soldier serum. And you get a really good... I think the one thing that does focus on Sam in this episode is you get a good contrast between him and John, in that Sam is looking for a bloodless way to solve this conflict. He is not looking to... kill anyone. He wants to talk. He wants to reason with the Flag Smashers. He wants to get through to Carly. And it seems like he's starting to. And then U.S. Agent, because I refuse to call him Captain America,
ruins everything.
Decides to Leroy Jenkins his way into everything.
See, this is the thing I was going to say, is that in this episode, although Sam isn't the main kind of person focused on, you get a little bit of background, because everyone forgets that Sam Wilson was a counselor.
Yes, that's how we're introduced to him in Winter Soldier. He was a grief counselor for veterans.
And to utilise that, experience and understanding, and he almost gets there. He almost does it. This close.
And that's a very short and kind of subtle instance of John Walker being a dick. When he's like, I've seen your work, and it doesn't, like, I'm not impressed.
There's a reason why he got the shield, John.
Yeah, he's basically inferring that, like, Sam's counseling sucked and didn't help anyone. Which was a real kind of jerk thing to say. And then, of course, we end up, when U.S. Agent busts in and kind of breaks up that, what was becoming a really, like, kind of meaningful talk between Sam and Carly. We end up with a big chase sequence. You've got Bucky doing his super soldier thing. He's got green slime in him, as the Weekly Planet liked to put it. Shout out to Weekly Planet. And you end up with Carly running headlong into Zemo, who shoots her in the stomach.
Zemo does this amazing thing. He has this amazing ability to escape literally anywhere.
And then he knows exactly where to show back up to be like the clutch, like, game changer in a fight.
Yeah, and he just and also that scene where the serum spills out on the floor. Did
you think he was going to take it?
Yes, for a brief split second, and you can agree with me.
Yeah, and then he just loses it.
He just fucking smashes it.
I love that, because it shows that Zemo does have a sense of honor. Like, he sticks to his principles. He does not think that people should have super soldier powers, including him.
That includes him.
And
and then of course there's got to be one that he missed that John Walker picks up, and we spend the next like 15 minutes being like, is he gonna take it? Is he gonna take it?
Yeah.
I want to know what you think. By the time he's sitting in that outdoor cafe talking to Battlestar, I think he's already taken it.
Yeah, because he looks like death.
Yeah, obviously the salt super serum like intensifies everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about how like that's why Carly ends up being so good after she takes it in terms of, like wanting to be heroic and save people. But as soon as you're even that scene, you see it, he's already so much more annoyed and weirdly passionate about his hatred.
He's got roid rage.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that like Carly, obviously Steve, of course, phenomenal, like makes the man better. Winter Soldier, Bucky has a weird one where he also is, because I guess it's like part assassin, part normal Bucky. It kind of splits 50-50 between them. Yeah. And then, like just
but not
the idea
everyone
that
is Steve Rogers, as Zemo points out.
So I think my favorite joke of this episode, which was really well timed, was when Zemo turns his head, and they go, "Yeah, don't do the head
tilt thing, and mess with your mind."
Yeah.
What I really loved about that is Zemo immediately like straightened his head back up. Like, oh, you got called out on your stuff.
The show has had some really good like comedic timing, which I feel like was a nice breath of air after WandaVision.
Yes. Another one of my favorite comedic moments is when the female special forces, whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head, from Wakanda, are savagely beating up John Walker.
Dora Milaje.
Yes, the Dora Milaje. And Bucky's just off to the side being like, "You're doing great, buddy. Good job.
You're doing a good job."
You do fantastic.
And then again, Zemo does his thing where he
just
takes
slips
his
out.
drink,
That's when he
the
pulls.
bath.
That's when he pulls the El Chapo, and I don't think we see him for the rest of the episode, do we?
No, I don't believe so. Cause
I think that's when he disappears. Like that's after the whole Carly thing.
It was such like a thing of like as soon as he's going to put his hand on her,
that
John,
was it. Like you're done.
I was like, you've got no chance. Like you can't beat these. These are like
you done effed up, boy.
Yeah, like even normal Captain America would probably struggle. Like Steve Rogers Captain would probably struggle to beat the Dora Milaje in hand-to-hand combat.
Steve would never get that far. He wouldn't even attempt it, man.
Yeah.
Steve would be. I think maybe the biggest thing in this entire TV show that kind of is a takeaway is this whole story would be different if Steve was still around.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, also the little I guess Bucky's arm has a kill switch.
Yeah.
Which he clearly didn't know about because he seemed shocked when his arm when he did his best impression of Arm Fall Off Boy. Another little Suicide Squad reference for you.
There you go. Linking it back.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole fight scene, just savagely beating on John. I mean, he didn't get a single hit in. That was just brutal. And then we get...
He deserved it.
Yes. And then we get, Bucky and Sam trying one more time to connect with Carly, which, of course, fake Captain America ruins again. And this is when we finally get to see, yes, he took the serum. Yeah. He can throw the shield into stone walls now. You know what I don't get? We've seen clearly that he can throw the shield, like Captain America as well. Like, when they throw the shield, it can wedge itself into trees and wall. Why is it just bounces off of human flesh? Like, end of the episode notwithstanding, we'll get there. Like,
yeah.
I feel like those guys should be way more messed up.
I think, I think that's definitely one of the things. But I think the comics explanation, the magical comics explanation, is that and basically it bounces off stuff or wedges itself off stuff with like vibrational frequencies. So like the human body sits at a different, like the flesh, like sits at a different flesh. Sits at a different like almost like resonancy frequency or something like that. Because obviously vibranium's like based off of vibration.
Stupid, and I'll accept it because comic books.
Honestly, probably the comic explanation is that's why human flesh is too soft.
It's a magic shield, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It comes back to its owner for no reason.
Yes. Yeah, it's the world's roundest boomerang. So we get the reveal, yes, John definitely took the serum. Homie is a super. I mean, we all saw this coming. I think we knew from the very start. Like, eventually he was going to take the serum, and that was going to lead to John Walker going down a dark path. I don't think any of us had any illusions that he was going to stay like a good character in this show. Like, obviously he was gonna. Like, he can't keep the shield, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And Carly makes the mistake of punching Battlestar too hard in the chest, doing a little five-finger death punch. Doing a little dim mock death touch.
Bethany, you obviously said the thing about it is that not everyone in that fight has super soldier serum.
I think they all forgot that. They all forgot that very quickly.
Yeah, like Falcon can take care of himself with his wings, right? He's got kind of shielding. He's not a super soldier, but he's pretty good with those. Obviously, Walker has the serum now. Bucky has his weird Winter Soldier juice, whatever that is. But Battlestar is just a dude in a costume. Like, he doesn't even have wings. He doesn't even have a shield. And yeah, I wasn't sure if punching him in the chest killed him, or if it wasn't he hit the wall as hard as he did, or that pillar.
Punching him in the chest is what made him hit the wall, so all of it is just bad.
And that, of course, sets Walker off the deep end. Carly immediately knows she messed up. Like, she takes her mask off, and you can see, like, she's almost horrified at what she's done.
Yeah, she clearly wasn't expecting that, because they all forgot that they were not all super soldiers.
Yes, and she hoofs it. Her buddy, another dude, which, by the way, the guy that Walker chases down is the flag smasher that earlier on in the episode said that he was a Captain America stan when he was growing up. He was a big fan of him, which makes this ending so much more tragic. Because John Walker chases down this guy, knocks him to the ground, and begins to savagely decapitate him with Captain America's shield.
Whilst there's an audience there with their cameras out.
All I could think of was Captain America and his mighty shield, decapitating evildoers who wield.
Decapitating America. Okay, I need to stop stealing jokes from the Weekly Planet. But that was, obviously they don't show the actual decapitation, but
when he stands up at the end with the shield
with the
covered
blood
in
on
blood,
the shield.
That imagery,
chills.
We gasped very loudly.
He is not, like, there's no remorse there.
That man is
he's gone.
See, the thing is,
he just made his Darth Vader turn.
And I think personally for me, and I think not to steal from the planet and those gentlemen, those little those gents, they kind of suggested as well that it could be that, as you said, they might lose the shield, but the US government could put a positive spin on it and then have him work underground missions for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Either that or he goes complete psycho cuckoo and tries to go maybe Hydra Cap.
From the look he had at the end, I think he is leaning towards going absolutely insane, because he was looking at that crowd trying to pick which one to attack next.
Yeah, he's like full Homelander status. That would actually be my biggest comparison, is Homelander from The Boys.
Superpower, crazy person superpowers.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously going forward, our last two episodes are largely, I think, going to deal with taking down Walker, and the question of who's going to take the shield from him. I'm of two minds here. On one hand, I don't think Sam can beat him in a fight now that he's got the serum. Bucky definitely can. I think Bucky can still whoop on him. Bucky's a better fighter. I think maybe Bucky will take him out, but Sam will still end up being the one to take up the shield.
I still think we're going to get another appearance from Patriot.
Yeah, Josiah, maybe.
I don't think they would tease his powers when he throws that thing against the wall without a payoff of some sort at some point in the series, in my opinion. It could also be that thing just to demonstrate, but yeah.
No, I think you're right. And I think that also plays into the fact that I think Sam will end up being the one to take up the shield. Is kind of like taking up his legacy as, I mean, he's what he is in the comics. He's called the Black Captain America. Isaiah is, I mean. So I think they might kind of follow that lineage, but I think Bucky's going to be the one to take John out. I think it's a more personal battle for him, like Steve Rogers versus Bucky's. That would be interesting. Zemo just shows up and does his thing.
Just shoots him in the head.
Yeah, just walks around the corner. Bam, you're done.
Just
And then he
fades
does
in from the
then he does a
background.
little dance.
That's
He does a little dance. Did you watch the full 30 seconds of
yeah.
him dancing?
I did. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Marvel.
The most important news of the week.
100%. So I'm looking forward to the last 2 episodes here. I think things are going to
Same.
pick up.
Yeah.
I think we're heading into that, like, the same thing happened with WandaVision. We're heading into that, like, back third of a Marvel movie where it becomes just a lot of fighting, I think.
Which I think, for me personally, I enjoy the fight a lot more in Falcon and Winter Soldier because of the choreography, and it's some of the best stuff that's been in the
There's
MCU.
been really good choreography. It's a nice
Agreed.
change from the fact that the last one was so CGI.
Yeah, and lasers.
Yes. This has been pretty much what I expected. It's basically Captain America 4. Like,
Oh, it's great. I love this one. Yeah.
Yes, it's Captain America 4, the next Captain America. Captain America 4, who gonna get the shield? It's the battle for the shield. It's Shield Bros. It's 2 captains. It's about 2 captains.
Captain
All
America.
of these names are better than the Falcon
Shield
and Soldier.
Smashers.
I will continue to call it the Sam and Bucky Power Hour.
Which is
It's not that much shorter than the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but it rolls off the tongue better.
It does.
it doesn't do it.
So, we will probably, I'm sure we'll talk about episode 5 next week when it comes out. I eagerly await that for bated breath. With bated breath. I'm bad at words right now. We're running pretty long here, so I want to kind of bring this portion of the podcast to a close. Now, stick around because we are going to come back. It might be a separate upload. It might be part of this. We haven't quite decided yet, but we are going to be back with Dan and Alan in tow. There's going to be 5 of us talking about fan casting for the upcoming MCU X-Men. We're going to go over what some of our listeners on Facebook think would be good casting. We'll go over our own choices and just kind of have a fun little discussion about that. You know, no holds barred, see what sounds good. Just in case we do end up making this the end of this episode and make the other one a separate upload, make sure that you visit the website. That is bigglasgowcomicpage.com. We've got reviews, we've got articles, we have the podcast on there, Catch Your Back episodes. We're on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram as Big Glasgow Comic Con.
Speaking of YouTube, actually, while we're on that, did you know that 80% of the people watching this?
You're just gonna cut me off like that?
I'm going to cut you off like that.
Bro, I'm kidding. Go on.
I was going to say that, speaking of YouTube, did you know that 80% of the people watching this on YouTube aren't subscribed to us? 80%?
Please make sure you subscribe. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. It makes us feel better about ourselves. I lie awake at night wondering why we don't have more likes and subscribes.
Exactly.
I don't sleep much,
this.
and that's why. And if you like and subscribe, I'll sleep more, and then I won't sound so addled when I'm a host. Everyone wins. He's right, though. Please subscribe, you know, if you like what we're putting out here.
We just turned to begging.
I am not above begging. Everyone does it. Every YouTube channel is all about hitting that hit that like, smack that bell. Hit it with your fist.
Smash that subscribe button.
Smash the like, subscribe bell. Get the notifications. Watch us when we're here. We're fun. We're a fun group of gentlemen and lady. Now
There we go.
we'll be back soon with our MCU X-Men fan casting, and as always, y'all have a wonderful week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Disassembled. You can find more news and reviews on bigglasgowcomicpage.com. And don't forget, you can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as BGCP Comic Con. Make sure you also subscribe on your podcast provider of choice for new episodes every week.